This video is for people who are sensitive to the astrology. New moons, full moons, especially eclipses. They have a profound and very noticeable effect on your energy levels, your sensitivity levels, your emotions, and oftentimes will directly influence the comings and goings of the various situations in your life. It can sometimes feel like you're being taken for a ride, like life is speeding up and you don't know where it's heading. Things are changing and you're not quite sure how the cards are going to fall. And it can be quite unnerving and uncomfortable. And yet deep down, both of us know that it's for our highest good. It's helping with our evolution. And it's stripping away what's no longer real and authentic and allowing space for the things that are real and are authentic. A lot of times these eclipses especially, they represent upgrades. They represent a rearranging of your external life to match the person who you've now grown into and become. But the transition, the process, it can be a little nutty. It can be a little chaotic. But that's why I make these videos. I make these videos for people like you who are on that journey. And I'm not sure about you, but what I've found is that each moon, each eclipse has its own lessons to bestow, its own challenges to overcome, its own vibe, if you will. And what I'm going to share with you in this video right here are the three major themes of the upcoming full moon and lunar eclipse on September 7th. So anyways, welcome to my channel. My name is Victor Oddo. I'm happy to have you here and I'll see you inside. Number one, a wake-up call from your higher self or from the universe, however you want to label it. What a lot of people are feeling right now, and I'm going through this as well, and I've talked to a lot of people going through like the exact same thing, is if there are things you know on a deep level that you're meant to do, but haven't been doing it, you're going to feel the nudge, we'll say. And it might feel a bit more than a nudge. It might feel like a stern, like it's time. There's no more waiting to write your book, start your blog, become the life coach, whatever it is, you know in your heart, you not only are like meant to do, but you kind of want to do, but maybe you just haven't found the time for it, or you maybe don't feel like you're quite in a place of life where it like makes perfect logical sense to really dig into this thing. Deep down, it might just be that you're afraid, because a lot of times these soul callings feel beyond our current capacity to do. Like I remember a long time ago when I felt this calling to be like a spiritual guide for people. And I was like in my early 30s, I was like this like YouTuber dude. And yeah, I did have a great deal of experience with the spiritual awakening process. I started going through it when I was in my like late teens basically. And you know, I have learned a lot, but when it came time to really like go for it, I always felt unqualified. I always felt like what the hell do I know? How am I going to claim to be a spiritual guide for people? You know? But what I found is that when I started doing it, when I went through a similar phase like this, when it felt like I had no choice but to do it, I realized that I have it in me to do it. That there's a deeper like part of me that maybe has already done it before in other lifetimes. I don't honestly know, but there's a part of me that kind of came up and came to the surface and allowing me to kind of rise to the occasion. And that's exactly what will happen for you. You know, you might not need as many credentials to do whatever it is you want to do as you think, because when it's truly inspired, you are guided by forces way beyond what our minds can predict and control and fathom. And you really do align yourself with like these higher forces that can make miracles happen. And really it's not a miracle at all. It's more so like a misunderstanding on our part. We are only taught to believe we can't do things, but we are more than we think we are. We are more powerful than we are taught to believe. And luckily, sometimes these eclipses kind of come in and shake up things in our life where we have kind of no choice but to go forth on this thing we kind of want to do anyways, but are afraid to. And then we get to realize that, oh man, I could have been doing this a long time ago. What was I waiting for? and it'll feel so good. You'll feel so aligned. But it feels like it's time to do this, not even to fulfill our own personal ambitions, but more so because it's what the collective needs. There's this strong sense of obligation that you might feel. Like this isn't about you. This isn't about, it's not about you. It's about like what you could be for other people. Whether that's an author or a guide or something. You're meant for more. All of us are. And it's the people who have been on this spiritual path that start to slowly become aware of that. But that like faint awareness oftentimes doesn't grow beyond that. It's always like this thing in the back of our minds that you might get little synchronicities. Like a long time ago, for example, I was buying a truck, like back, like, I don't know, over 10 years ago. And I was telling this guy who I was buying the truck for, I'm like, yeah, you know what? Me and my family, we're gonna become full-time RVers, and I'm gonna pursue my YouTube dream. I was like talking about like my dreams with this guy for some reason. And he was like, wow, that's really fascinating. He said, you should write a book. And when he said that, when he said, you should write a book, it was almost like life and existence stopped for a half a second to sort of like say, did you get that, Vic? You should write a book. And then things went back to normal. It was kind of I can't put it into words, but it was like a trippy thing like that where I was like, I knew it was like God telling me to write a book out of the mouth of this freaking salesman. But my point is like I was waiting, kind of like, okay, well, what am I going to write about? Well, you know, write about my, you know, life. I'm just this regular dude. It didn't seem like practical, but I would have little reminders like that here and there. But what I'm saying is like right now, it might be like in your own way, you're going to attract whatever it is you need, whether it's a really undeniable synchronicity or whether it's some kind of problem in your life that's leaving you no choice but to do the thing, or just a strong intuition. Maybe it's a strong dream and it's going to say, you need to do this thing now. It's not about you. It's about the collective. We let you put it off for a little while here, but that time is dwindling and it's go time, buddy. And it can feel sometimes when you're doing this, when you're kind of catching up on living your purpose, it can feel like that. It can feel like, man, it feels kind of like you've been backed up and you're trying to catch up. And life can be kind of nutty at that time. A lot of changes and things kind of going on in your life, and it can feel a little dicey sometimes in your life. But I can say, as I've been through it before, and that it's normal to refuse the call. It's okay. It's almost like the universe kind of expects that of us. There's a whole book about it called A Hero with a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell. And there's these various stages of the hero's journey, which is kind of like the spiritual awakening journey. And one of the stages is the refusal of the call. Like, kind of like that guy saying, you should write a book. I knew intuitively exactly what that was telling me, but I refused it. For my own reasons. You probably have your own as well. But you can only hold off your calling for so long. And now it's a time where, imagine if all the people who are sensitive like you and me, like around the world, start doing what they're meant to do. Like that could spell big things for the collective. So anyways, I want to just kind of put that out there in case you need one more little wink from the universe. Let this be it. Number 2, it's a time to go with the flow. And I know we hear that all the time. Go with the flow. Wow. Tell me something I haven't heard from another spiritual YouTuber 1,000 times, Vic. I mean that like in the most literal sense. Because when life shakes us up, as it might be happening for you right now, and you feel kind of like you don't know how the cards are going to fall yet, it can put us into like, you know, fight or flight, where we like really try to control and try to cling and try to like force things, and it can cause us to kind of get lost and distracted and almost disoriented, I would say, by the minutia, by the details, by all like the specifics. And life is too complex to really successfully manage all of that. You're going to drive yourself crazy, even if you really are smart, and a lot of you are, and you try. You're going to feel the effects it has on your sense of groundedness, your sense of your consciousness even. when we get into like the minutia and the details, we really like sever off our intuition, and that's when we start making kind of dumb choices, honestly. But you don't have to do that because you're so perceptive. I bet if you just sort of step back even a couple of feet and like tuned in to like the energy of your various struggles or problems, whatever's going on, you'll be able to kind of see what's happening here. I did this just the other day. I had my own list of things that are like, weighing on my mind, that I was doing all this. As I said, I was kind of obsessing about the details and it was getting nowhere. I knew I was sort of like, it was futile. I was trying to find security in the details, basically, in my own situation. And it was just getting me more and more worked up. And finally, I recognized this. And I just sort of stepped back and I got out my little notebook here and I asked myself, I kind of wrote down the few different things that were on my mind. And I asked myself, what do I sense is going on here? And it was obvious. I wrote it down. And then within 2 minutes, I had a very accurate gauge on what was sort of taking place. All of it was very positive. All of it did, however, require kind of trust and letting go and that kind of thing. But nonetheless, I realized that when life gets kind of like this, when you feel like your life is sort of accelerating forward and you're not really sure where to go and it feels kind of chaotic, usually your intuition is even more heightened, and it's even easier to kind of tell what's really going on. But it does require kind of stepping back and more so flowing with the energy rather than the details. And an example of this that I've always experienced is with my finances. I've had times of expansion, and ironically, oftentimes these times of expansion, which is to say coming into new fun things, uncovering new layers of my purpose, tackling a new business or a new endeavor or a new project or a new creative thing, all these things that are fun and expansive, oftentimes that would correlate with my bank account being low for some reason or getting hit with some kind of random bill or something like that. But what I've learned is that to trust the energy of the situation. Because multiple times this has happened where if I was to plainly look at the numbers, I would say, oh God, I'm in trouble or something, but when I stepped back into the energy, I knew that this is just sort of a temporary little blip that's going to correct itself once this process is more underway and comes to kind of a resolve. A specific example would be when I was younger, I came into work one day. This is the last actual job I had. I was 21 or 22 years old. I came into work one day and my manager, Bill, he said, hey, Vic, come in the office. I have to talk to you. And he said, I'm closing down. I was like, what do you mean we're closing down? He said, yeah, we're done. It's over. I said, what? He said, yeah, Fitness Together, where I used to work, it's done. The owner made some financial mistakes and it's it. I was like, so when Bill, next month? He said, today. He said, you don't even have to work if you don't want to. And during that time, the other coworkers were upset, obviously. They're man, they were mad at the owner. There was this whole kind of mini drama. There was only a few of us, but I could tell they were worked up, and I was too initially. And then I had this idea. I was like, well, if they're closing down completely, what if I just went on the computer and wrote down the names and numbers of all the clients that I liked the most, and I called them up the very next day and said, hey, how would you like it if I came to your house and trained you? I'll charge you less money and I'll come straight to you. And I did exactly that, and I filled up my schedule with clients. Now, I was getting paid very little because I was not the owner. Now I'm the owner, so I got to charge them less. I made 3 times more money, got to work with my favorite clients around my own preferred schedule, and it was amazing. So that's kind of what I mean. But if I was to get caught in the details of they're closing down, there's no more paychecks, what are you going to do next month with rent? All these, you can start going and spiraling, or you can step back and see the bigger picture. And oftentimes, it's in our favor if we can be patient, and if we can, regardless, if you can stay in this state of being kind of detached and following the energy, that's when you're more open to these awesome ideas and opportunities that oftentimes, in fact, almost always spring from these little life calamities. Number 3, it's a time that you might need like extra self-care, which is kind of a boring thing to talk about. But what I'll say about this is what I've learned is that times when I'm most busy and going through like the most rapid changes and I'm kind of on edge for all the reasons I said, kind of like during an eclipse season, I find that I can be more productive, more efficient, and navigate the changes much more effectively if I take more time to rest and do my meditation, whatever works for you. Even though you're kind of taking time out of like, handling your life and stuff, it's better because when you go back into life, you'll be more conscious and more focused. And it's very easy to become very distracted and on edge during times of unexpected change. And that's how we tend to kind of spiral ourselves out. So whatever it is you like to do that works for you, I recommend doing more of it. And sort of like allowing yourself, and this is so hard for me, I don't do this well, but allowing yourself to kind of sit in the feeling of there being like open-ended loops in your life. Like sometimes it's not the time to like take action. Sometimes it is best to kind of just sit there. And if you can do that, if you can like take better care of yourself, you'll just be a lot more receptive to the timing when it is time to take action. And what you might find is that even though on paper there's a lot of things you got to do and maybe in less time than you would prefer, if you can kind of align yourself with the awareness of the best timing, you can get kind of a lot done in a much shorter span of time than you might expect. I've had so many situations like this. I remember a long time ago when I was going to close down my fitness gym and sell my house and move to California in a travel trailer. Big change. I have 3 kids, a wife, dogs, a whole gym full of equipment. And like the thought of that, the thought of like really undertaking all those huge projects, it was like, shoot me now. I don't want to go through any of that stuff. But what I found is that it happened very, very quickly, very, very synchronistically, because I did exactly what I said in this little tip here. I took care of myself and I was aware of the timing, and I just felt like I was sort of guided through this process. And, for example, we put our house on the market. It sold in the week during just for the first weekend. It just sold right then and there. And selling the gym was a lot easier than I thought because I had a garage sale and people came and took all the equipment. It was like one day the thing was empty. It was like real quick. A lot of times the idea can be a lot more intense than the reality of it. But here's the thing. It's like we can't just go through life the way we've been taught to. We have to really start to trust ourselves and trust our intuition, trusting our sensing of the energy. And again, this can allow you to just make the right choice in the right time over and over and over again, leading to a much smoother and a much faster transition. From the time of conception, for me, I had this idea and this dream to be living in San Diego, being a full-time coach and a YouTuber. But at the time of having this sort of dream come to me, this sense of my own destiny, going back to point number 1, I had my gym, I was growing medical marijuana in my basement, I had a house, I had cars, leases, I had my kids were in school, all these ties basically. But within less than 6 months, that was my exact reality. I had sold my house, I had completely divorced myself from my previous life and was living the exact way I had envisioned. And there's no way I could have done that in fact, when I initially had that idea, my wife and I we created what we called our 5-year plan. We had a 5-year plan to accomplish all this. It happened in 6 months because I followed the flow. I followed the energy. I trusted as best I could, not always perfectly, my intuition. And it always led me synchronistically to the right move to make at the right time. And you know what? At the end of the day, I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about manifestation. I learned a lot about how reality works. And I learned a lot about how you can trust your own feeling of passion, excitement, resonance, you can always trust that. It always paves a way where there doesn't seem to be one. And now's the time that I recommend doing that. But I kind of got off track a little bit, didn't I? But it comes down to the self-care, because if you don't take the time and make yourself relax, you're not going to be at a level of consciousness where you can perceive all that stuff. And it's hard sometimes. Like I'm going through this right now. I did an important coaching call on Monday, and what I did right afterwards, because I tend to get kind of like revved up after a coaching call and I knew I'd be kind of ungrounded for the rest of the day, I made myself go sit down and meditate for like 15 minutes. And it was so hard because I was so like excited, filled with the creative energy, but I made myself sit and meditate and kind of like switch my nervous system off. So it's a good time to have like a disciplined self-care routine. It can make a humongous difference in how you experience these transitions. They don't have to be as exhausting and stressful and chaotic as they may have been. A lot of that is due to our lack of understanding of how to flow with this type of change, basically. And you know what to do. It's not like you have to learn it. You just have to trust it. You have to trust your intuition, your higher guidance. It'll guide you every step of the way. And before you go, if you feel like you have a lot of stuck emotion and stuck energy, and it's kind of like an internal resistance preventing you from maybe pursuing your next step or taking your destiny seriously, whatever it is, and you want some help with that, I'm going to share with you a free breathwork ceremony. It's called Somatic Release Breathwork. I've been certified for years, taken tens of thousands of people through this sort of ceremonial, breathing, transformational experience. And I'm going to give it to you for free. It's a recording from one I've done a while back. I'll leave a link down below, but it's exactly designed for helping you release stuck energy. And check it out if that's something you would be interested in. It's free. And with that said, I'll see you all next time. Have an amazing day. Peace.